Welcome students. Today we will be going quickly through the basics of all the topics under the course Strength of Material, along with sample MCQs for the same, which will help you for your end semester examinations. This entire course, that is Strength of Material, is being divided into 7 different capsules, wherein each capsule will consist of various topics of strength of materials. So, without much ado, let us start with the first capsule of the strength of material, that is the stress and strain. Let me give you a brief of this topic, stress and strain, which is also I call as last minute revision, which will help you to solve MCQs as well as the descriptive part of your end semester examination. So, stress. Basically, stress is defined as the resisting force per unit area. The important word in this entire definition is this one, which is resisting force per unit area. So, if I explain it like this, let us say there is an element of some length L and some cross section area A, then a load, if applied axially to this element, so this is known as the applied load. Now, because of this applied load, this load will tend to increase or elongate the element. So this will try the internal forces will try to resist it, and this internal resisting force acting per unit area, which is resisting the deformation of the object, is defined as the stress. So hope you have got the actual meaning of stresses. So again, I repeat, stress is defined as the resisting force per unit area. Then the second term in this is strain, wherein strain is defined as the ratio of change in dimension to the original dimension. Normally, what we have seen that when we ask someone that defines strain, what they normally tell, they tell it is change in length upon original length. That is not the actual definition. That is some specific strain. Okay, so basic definition for strain is defined as a ratio of change in dimension to the original dimension. Again, let me consider an example. Let us say there is a bar of length L subjected to some load P. Now, because of this load P, this bar will try to extend like this. Let us say it is extended up to this length, where this length is, let us say, delta L. So because of this application of load, this has extended to delta L by the quantity delta L. So now if I apply the strain relation, so I will get strain is denoted by E. Strain is denoted by E. So I will write it is change in dimension. So what is the change? Change is only just delta L. So I will write down here delta L divided by original dimension was L. Hence, for this case wherein the length is changing, now I can write it that strain is delta L upon L, where delta L is change in length divided by original length. Now, based on this, there are 3 different types of strain. So, first one is the longitudinal strain. We just now saw it. It is the ratio of change in length to the original length. On the similar lines, now, as this length is changing, as this length is increasing, what happens to diameter? The diameter starts reducing. So let us say this is the diameter will start reducing. Now, the change in dimension to the original dimension of in the lateral direction will be known as the lateral strain. So I will write here lateral strain is defined as the ratio of change in diameter to original diameter. So here lateral strain will be defined as ratio of change in diameter to original diameter because it is the lateral dimension of the object. The third part is the volumetric strain. So again it will be on the similar lines. Volumetric strain is defined as the ratio of change in volume to the original volume. As it is volumetric strain, it will be change in volume divided by original volume. So if I can write in the formula terms, I will write EL, that is longitudinal strain, is equal to delta L upon L lateral strain. So I will write it that E lateral, let us say E lateral is equal to delta D upon D. And for E volumetric, I will write EV is equal to delta V upon V. Similarly, for stress, I can write stress is equal to resisting force per unit area. And the unit for stress is Newton per mm square. And as strain is the units, and as strain is the division or the ratio of two same quantities, it has no unit. Okay, hope you have understood this. So with this, we will now proceed to the next part, which is the most important part of the stress strain topic, which is nothing but the stress strain curve. Let me explain you the stress strain curve for an ductile material. This is the stress strain curve for a ductile material. Now, for a ductile material, as you can see, as the load goes on increasing, the stress and strain behaves linearly. So in this region O2A, the strain and stress are directly proportional to each other. Now, as the load goes on increasing, you can see here it is increasing, but not proportionally. Stress is increasing, but it is not proportional to the strain. Then again, this region from B to D is known as the strain hardening region. Okay. At point B, the phase changes from elastic to plastic region. Or I can say it is a transition from elastic to plastic. So this region below B is known as the elastic region, and the region after B will be known as the plastic region. Now, because of the strain hardening, the specimen again go on taking the load, and it will reach up to the maximum point. Now, this point, which is maximum, is known as the ultimate stress of the material, sigma ut. At this point, the stress is ultimate. Now, from this point, the load goes on decreasing, and at this point, finally, it will be breaking. So, E will be known as the breaking point, the point at which specimen will break, and during this period D to E, the necking formation takes place. The necking of the specimen takes place. That means the diameter goes on reducing. Now, let me name the various points. This point A is known as the point of proportionality. Point of proportionality. Or I can say a point up to which stress is directly proportional to strain. This point B is known as upper yield point. Upper yield point. And this point C is known as lower yield point. D we have already seen. It is the ultimate stress point. So I will write here ultimate stress point. Ultimate stress. And finally, E is known as the breaking point. So this is nothing but the entire stress strain curve, wherein you can see the region O2A stress is directly proportional to strain. Then the load goes on decreasing, and again it starts taking the load because of the strain hardening property. And at some point, which is the ultimate stress, the necking of the specimen takes place, and it will come to the failure, which is known as the breaking point. So this was all about the stress strain curve of the ductile material. Now let us see what happens when it is a brittle material. So this is a case of a brittle material, or you can say the stress strain curve of a brittle material. Now just observe these two. You can see the similarities that from this point, let us say O to point A, it is exactly similar. The only thing in brittle material is there is no plastic region. As you can see here, from point B, the plastic region starts, but in this case, there is the curve ends here only. That means there is no plastic region. The material will fail at this particular point only. So it is at the end of the elastic region only, the material will fail. So that kind of material will be known as a brittle material, and this kind of curve is known as a stress strain curve for a brittle material. So hope you have got it. Now let us proceed to some other concepts, which is like this. Hooke's law. As we have seen in the previous slide, from O to A, the stress is directly proportional to strain. So that only Hooke's law states. It states that within elastic limit, again this word is important, within elastic limit, stress is directly proportional to the strain part. So if I write in terms of mathematical relation, I will write as per Hooke's law, stress, that is, I will write sigma, is directly proportional to the strain, which is E. So if I remove this proportionality sign, I will write sigma is equal to E multiplied by E, where E is the Young's modulus of the material. Now this new term has been introduced, E, which is Young's modulus. Let us now see what does Young's modulus mean. So Young's modulus, as you all know, it's defined by E, denoted by capital letter E, and is defined as the measure of ability of a material to withstand changes in length when subjected to tensile or compressive load. It's very simple. It is the ability of material to withstand changes when subjected to tensile or compressive loads. In mathematical terms, as we have seen here only, sigma is equal to E. If I just rearrange the terms, I will get Young's modulus is nothing but stress divided by strain. The next type of modulus is known as the rigidity modulus, that is G, and is given by the relation G is equal to tau, that is shear stress divided by shear strain. What it is here? Young's modulus is nothing but direct stress or normal stress, I can say, direct stress upon strain or normal stress upon normal strain, I can say. On the similar lines, we have modulus of rigidity, which can be written as tau upon sigma, tau upon gamma, where tau is the shear stress, where tau is shear stress acting on material, and gamma is the shear. Now there is one more constant which is known as the bulk modulus, K, and bulk modulus is given by the ratio of sigma, that is direct strain, divided by dV by V. So if I write in the normal form, it will be sigma, I can write it as direct stress or normal stress divided by dV by V. If you can see here, dV means change in volume divided by volume. So change in volume upon the original volume is nothing but the volumetric strain. So if I want to define the bulk modulus, I can define it as bulk modulus is defined as a ratio of direct stress to the volumetric strain. So now we are familiar with three different kinds of constants, that are E, G, and K. Now, is there any relation between them? Is there any relation between Young's modulus, modulus of rigidity, and the bulk modulus? So yes, there is the relation, which is also an important part for your MCQs as well as your problem solving in descriptive part. So the relation is E is equal to 3K 1 minus 2 mu. It is relation between E and K. The next relation is between E and G, which is E is equal to 2G 1 plus mu. And the third relation is between E and Kg both. So E is equal to 9 Kg divided by 3K plus G. And lastly, there is one more relation, which is mu. Mu means the Poisson's ratio. So Poisson's ratio in terms of K and G is given by 3K minus 2G divided by 6K plus 2G. So these are the important relations by which you can solve many of the problems in your descriptive as well as MCQs question. Let us go for another part, wherein we have the change in length of a uniform bar. Now, let us say that there is a bar of length L and diameter D or area A subjected to some force or load P. Now, we know that stress is equal to E multiplied by E. This we have already seen as per Hooke's law. Now, sigma means force upon area, that is resisting force upon area, is equal to E, that is Young's modulus, multiplied by strain is given as change in length upon original length. So if I just rearrange the terms, I will get therefore delta L is equal to P into L divided by A. So that is nothing but written here. The change in diameter or the change in length of a uniform bar is given by the relation delta L is equal to PL by A. So this is a relation when the bar is uniform. Now what happens when the bar is a circular bar which is tapering from diameter D to D. So let us say there is a bar which has some diameter here, small d, and as we go increase towards the length, the diameter also goes on increasing. So let us say the diameter is small d here and capital D here. In this case, if the load is applied, now what will be the change in length? So change in length is given by the relation delta L is equal to 4PL divided by pi E into D into B, where D is the small diameter and capital D is the larger diameter of the bar. So this is the case when it was a circular bar. Now let us see a case where there is a rectangular bar. So same things apply. But instead of a circular bar, there is a rectangular bar. So I will make it like this. Let us say it is like here. And let me assume that the length here is B1 and length here is B2 and it is tapered bar. So in this cases, the change in length is given by PL divided by E into T, where T is the thickness. As it is a rectangular bar, it will have some thickness. So if I make a side view or cross section, this is nothing but T. So thickness into B2 minus B1 into log of B2 upon B1. Okay, let us proceed to the next part, which is change in length of a bar due to self-weight. So till now we have seen the three parts, which are change in length of uniform bar, change in length of a bar changing from B1 to B2, and a rectangular bar from B1 to B2. Now let us see the case when the length is changing due to the self-weight. For example, let us say this. A bar has been fixed on some surface length. Now, because of this bar self-weight, it will try to come down. And because of that, there should be some, or there will be some change in length due to its self-weight. So because of the self-weight, the change in length will be W into L divided by 2AE, where this W is nothing but the specific weight of the bar. Where this W is specific weight of the bar. Now, next part is change in length of a bar due to a temperature. That is also known as the thermal strain. Again, same logic. Let us say there is a bar of some length L, but now it is not subjected to a load, but it is subjected to a thermal loading. It is heated up to some temperature. Now, as we all know that because of the tendency of material, it expands under high temperature. So when the temperature is increased, they try to expand. So as the temperature is increased, this try to expands, and the change in length will be delta L. So it is given that the change of this length will be given by alpha multiplied by delta T multiplied by L, where alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion. It varies from material to material. Delta T is change in temperature, and length is the original length of the bar. Now let us come to the main topic, or the important topic, that is thermal stresses, for which I will draw a diagram like this. Let us say there is a bar of some length L and I am heating it up to some temperature. Now because of this beam or this bar will try to expand itself by some value, let us say delta. Now if I am allowing it to expand freely, that means I am not applying any restriction to it, then the thermal stresses in this case will be zero. Now why zero? Now again go to the definition. What does the definition of stress says? It is the opposing force per unit area. So here there is no opposing force. I am allowing to expand freely. So as there is no opposing or resisting force, the stress will be 0. On the other hand, let us say I am considering the same bar of length L heated up to the same temperature, and but now let us say I have restricted it to expand. Now what happens? Because of this heating, this will try to expand in this direction, but because of this fixed support here, it will resist this expansion. So there is now resisting force. Hence, I can write the thermal stress is maximum. The thermal stress is maximum in this case when it is fully restricted. Now let us come to the third case. The third case is like this. Let us say again I will take a same bar of length L, again heating up to same temperature, but now I am placing this support at some distance. Now what will happen? Because of the heat, this will try to expand. Now till this part it will expand freely. That means till this part there will be no thermal stress is acting. But as soon as it touches this part, there will be resisting force. So because of this resisting force, the thermal stress will be coming. So I can say that in this case, the thermal stress will be anywhere between 0 to maximum. So in first case, where there is no restriction, thermal stress is 0. Where it is fully prevented, it will be maximum. And where it is some part allowed and some part restricted, it will be between 0 and maximum. Now the next part is the Poisson's ratio, which we have seen in the previous slides. What do you mean by Poisson's ratio? That is denoted by mu, and it is defined as the ratio of lateral strain to the longitudinal strain. Students make mistake here. Normally we have the habit of writing mu is equal to longitudinal upon lateral, but here it is opposite. Mu is lateral upon longitudinal strain. For example, let me say that this is a bar again of length L, and it is subjected to some load P in this direction. Now because of this, this will try to expand in delta L, and it will contract in the diameter. So if I want to write down mu for this, it is lateral. Lateral means the change in diameter, which is perpendicular to the axis of the load. So it will be delta D upon D, the whole divided by longitudinal strain is the strain in the direction of the applied load. So because of this, there will be change in length. So I will write delta L upon L. This was all about the last minute revision of this topic, stress and strain. Hope you have got it. Now, after seeing the last minute revision, let us now try to solve some of the multiple choice questions.